Corrupted creatures do drop some vital items for the game, and I'm here to showcase how much GP you can actually make by fighting corrupted scorpions. So if that's something that's interesting to you, make sure you stay tuned. Let's dive in. As for the requirements for this method, you will need 90 plus combat skills, which is your necromancy, defense, and your constitution, along with 88 plus slayer, so you can actually damage the corrupted scorpions. You will also need 98 plus herblore for your holy aggro overloads, and also partially complete Ich Loren's Little Helper. Don't scold me for the name. And you will also need a tier 6 talent tree for necromancy unlocked, just for how the revo bar is set up. As for the recommendations, I do recommend having 112 invention so you can have potion reservoirs, just so you can make this a super AFKable method. After that, you want to maybe have 97 plus archaeologies, just so you can have the Fury of the Small relic power, which we'll go over here in a little bit, since it does help a bunch by using the scythe. After that, anytime you do anything AFKable and you can kill a lot of creatures in a short amount of time, scavenging perk is almost a mandatory thing to have on any kind of setup. As for the gear setup itself, we will be running with the tier 90 death dealer set. You could probably honestly get away with the tier 80 death dealer set here, but more necromancy stats equals more kills over an hour. Now, I do have the max cape on here just to showcase that you don't need a Zuck cape to do a lot of things in the game. Now, for the necklace, I do have the Blood Amulet of Fury and the Reaver's Ring in the ring slot. I do have a Nexus in the ammo slot, even though we're only going to be using the Ectoplasm. I do have the tier 90 weapons and the Scripture of When God book that will not be activated with this method. As for the inventory, we have our potion reservoirs, our holy aggro overloads, and some magic note paper. We also have a Sophanum Slayer Dungeon teleport tab, so if you guys don't know how to get there, you can just buy this off of the GE. You click on it and it'll teleport you right outside in front of the dungeon. Now, I do have a Bunyet Familiar on here, but we'll get into that in a little bit after we showcase the setup. And then we have a Charminant because they do drop charms, so you might as well get some summoning experience along the way. Now, we have a bunch of the Feathers of Mott and some Vital Spark enhancers inside, which I'll explain how to get those here in a second. For the auras that we are going to be using will depend on what kind of familiar you'll have and what other items you will need in your inventory. The use of the Penance aura is only if you do not have a legendary pet. You have to use a Bunyet pouch, and you will also have to use Soul Split, which does require a little bit more questing to get done. As for the Vampirism aura, you only use it with the setup that we just currently talked about. That's also with a legendary pet. Now, you don't need a legendary pet for this whole method, but it does help pick up the extra loot that does fall on the ground maybe you did miss while you're just walking around doing some chores, since this is a huge AFK method. Now, if you don't have any one of those auras, you will have to use Powder of Penance along with Soul Split, which does require, again, a lot more questing to get done. So this will be a little bit more expensive to use the Powder of Penance, and your profits will take a hit because Powder of Penance is almost 1 mil a piece for every half an hour. Now, you can get your Vital Spark drop enhancers from Byro outside of Daemonheim under the Consumables tab. Each Vital Spark drop enhancer will cost around 1,000 Dungeoneering tokens, so you can always use the Archaeology method to gain all of your Dungeoneering tokens for you to be able to buy all of them as much as you need. Now, after you teleport to the dungeon, I highly suggest getting your Feathers of Mott from the Menophyte guard outside of the dungeon entrance. They will be 1,500 a piece. All you need about 1,000. You don't need the full 1,500, but if you bought them from the GE, they will be up to about 1,600 to 1,700 a piece, and you don't want to do that because that's just wasting so much more GP. Now, once you go inside of the dungeon, you'll go to the treasure chest itself. You can toggle whether or not you want the drops to land on ground or to automatically go inside of the chest. If they go to the ground, you will get a 20% chance of your loot doubling, which could be very, very good for your Vital Sparks and your Key of the Crossings, where the main money does come from this method. But if you want to make it super AFKable, you can just have everything go straight into the chest, so you don't have to worry about it. But the Key of the Crossing does land on the ground every time. It does not go straight to the chest like the Vital Sparks do. And that is why we have our legendary pet. Once you preferenced what you want to do with your chest, you just run into the middle of the room, activate your Vampirism aura. You're going to turn on your Potion Reservoir, which does have your Holy Aggro Overload inside of it, and you're just going to let everything go. Now this revolution bar is the reason why we do not have to use any type of prayers along with the vampirism aura. So we're going to have our ghost, which will also be a command ghost in the very beginning, which gives you majority of your healing. Next, we do have Soul Strike, which is an AoE ability, and it also stuns every single one of the scorpions that get hit by it. Then we have Soul Sap, which gives us our souls for the Soul Strike. After that, we do have Blood Siphon before the Scythe, because you want to be able to use it as much as possible, because when your corruption starts to stack up, you start taking a decent amount of damage, and you'll be able to use your Blood Siphon to regain as much HP as possible. So next we have our Scythe, and this is where Fury of the Small does come into play, so you can use it as much as possible when it is off of cooldown, and you'll have Fury of the Small that will gain you as much adrenaline over time, but again, you don't need to have any relic powers doing this method. After that, we have Touch of Death and Sacrifice just for filler spots. They hardly ever get used, but Sacrifice is there so you can have extra healing along the way. Now, we only have the Ghost in the Revo bar just because, of course, the ability to heal, but it will only use 1 ectoplasm every time you conjure the Ghost out, instead of 8 when you conjure your full army out. Now, what you can also do is you can click on the Feathers of Mott when your corruption does hit up to 25% if you really want to. It will cleanse all of your corruption, which I don't suggest because this method does work with your corruption being maxed out at 25%, and you're just going to waste more GP by using your Feathers of Mott just to cleanse all of the corruption. Also, while doing this method, you will gain reputation for Menethos, so make sure you choose your faction that you want to gain the experience for before you actually go in and fight in them. Which, the Unexpected Diplomacy Relic Power does give you an additional 10% to all the reputation you do gain while doing all of the stuff within Menethos, which also includes the Soften and Slayer dungeon. And it only requires level 25 archaeology to get done. Now let's talk about how much GP you can actually make by doing this method, and we're going to start off by talking about our expenses. First off, we have our ectoplasm. You're looking at doing about 65 ectoplasms during this method just because of your Conjure Ghost. Now, with the prices that they are right now, you're looking at about 130,000 GP in your hour of just the ectoplasm. After that, we have the Feathers of Mott. This is going to be your most expensive expense that you have for this method, and you're looking at about doing 130 kills during your 1 hour. So that's going to equate to about 1.3 million GP in that hour. Now we have to also put in our Holy Aggro Overloads, which they're about 28,000 per dose. So you're looking at about 169,000 GP per hour using your Holy Aggro Overloads. Now, doing a whole hour or the whole time for my Vampirism Aura, I was able to make about 7.7 million GP in just the drops that go straight to the chest. That's without any doubling whatsoever, along with 9 blue charms. And with the expenses, you're going to be looking at about 6.1 million GP per hour for just a pure on AFK method like this. But that doesn't come an end to this video. If you guys found anything interesting or new, make sure to hit that like button. If you guys are brand new to the channel and you like to see more money making methods like this, or novice PVMing, or low effort PVMing for bosses, make sure to hit that sub button, hit that bell icon so you guys know when I upload next. But until next time, guys, I hope you stay safe. See ya.